Have you had a chance to play it?
Yeah, we talked about it on the podcast.
I don't remember at all.
Hello and welcome to another Dead Pixel, a podcast about games, TV, movies. Used to be about anime. We'll get to more of that later, and life and everything in between. I'm your host today, Joseph, and with me, the guy who said he could take on a velociraptor with his bare hands, Nick. How are you doing, Nick?
Doing pretty good. The trick is you got to take them by the hands because they actually have. I mean, everybody thinks of the T-Rex as having small little two little fingers, but velociraptors actually have small hands too. It's the feet you got to watch out for. So if you can get him into like a wrestling stance, you can take him down pretty easily, I think.
See, I don't know. I always feared that they'd be like, when you're trying to fight a kangaroo, and how they use that back tail for their, for leverage and buoyancy. I always feared that that was going to happen, and once they get their feet back, that claw is just going to, rip you to shreds. So I figured you just never stand a chance.
Well, I mean, that remains to be seen. Fortunately, it can't be proved definitively.
All right, and I guess are you team feathers or scales?
I mean, it's not like a team thing. It's like which do I think looks better or which do I think is a fact?
Yes.
So unfortunately, I think that the scales. I mean, it's just how I was raised, but like the scales them being like big lizards, that's cooler to me because I guess it's closer to being like a dragon in a weird way. But factually, I'm pretty sure science has definitively proved that they all had feathers, at least all the ones that we think are cool, like the T-Rex and Velociraptor, which is kind of sad, but I think that's just sort of the way of it.
Well,
Um,
okay, I'm going to tell you this though. Uh, Science doesn't definitively prove anything because science also definitively proved when I was a kid that they had scales and Pluto was a planet. So I'm waiting for science to reverse those things and make sure that Pluto becomes a planet again, and velociraptors are actually giant again.
so some people have rejected the idea that Pluto is not a planet. I mean, it's it's sort of silly. I think they were getting kind of planet happy back then, from what I've heard. I mean, my argument would be we already have it. We've already named it. It doesn't really matter whether it's a planet or not. So just frickin' leave it. Just explain what it
I
is.
look at it as it's this part of the history, and we should continue it in their naming because if they're going to learn about Roman gods, then you're going to be like, "There's Pluto." Wait, what's Pluto? For the newer generation, and it's weird. Just keep it going. It's well, who's it hurting by saying by excluding it now? That's someone wants their name on the record book saying, "I'm the one who killed the planet. It's me. I'm the one who got it expunged," and that's what it is.
Yeah, I didn't really understand. I mean, I understood the argument, but it's like, I don't care enough. Just keep it a planet. Why do you have to
I
destroy
remember
everything
that
that my
and Steve
childhood?
Irwin dying at the same time, like all happened over a course of one phone call from when I was in basic training. We got a bunch of, we heard over the intercom, attention all privates, attention all privates. Steve Irwin has died. And half of us are like, oh my God, what happened? The other ones were like, who's Steve Irwin? We're like, the crocodile. Guys, like, what? And then
Crikey.
we all, you know, and so like, did he get eaten? And then we had phone calls. We were able to make phone calls that day, and so like almost everyone asked about that. And then one person got off the phone, being like, "Hey guys, I heard Pluto's not a planet anymore." We are like, "What? Did it get destroyed?" We had no outside information. Did a meteor hit it? Like we had no idea what was going on. So yeah,
Dude,
that was a wild weekend.
Steve Irwin's death, like, that should not have mattered as much as it did. Like, it's like, oh, yeah, it's very sad. I get that. But whenever he died, that was national. That was probably, at least the Western world, that was news over the whole Western world for sure. From Australia to all the way back to Britain for sure. All the English speaking countries, because he was loved and beloved by everybody, and for him to die so suddenly was just freaking wild.
Yeah, I mean, he was most definitely like a
House-
leader in his field
Household name.
and teaching, yeah, and teaching people, all about nature. So, no, so yeah, that's no, that when it comes to just expunging and changing history and stuff like that, I'm like that's just messed up, man. You can't tell me dinosaurs have feathers. Not when all the movies I grew up watching say otherwise.
I mean, they say
Um,
that they found like things on the bones that mean that they had feathers, but yeah, they probably come up with some other reason why they didn't later. Who knows?
all right.
It's whatever.
Well, then, we're filming this now on the 30th, so right before New Year. Uh, we just Christmas just happened. So how was yours, man? How do you make out? Do you celebrate with family? Do you celebrate solo?
Oh yeah,
Um,
me and my family went and we went to the movies. Saw a movie I'll talk about later, but we did that on Christmas Day, and it's down in Texas, so it doesn't normally get super cold here, but Christmas Eve and a couple days before it was getting pretty dang cold. I think it got cold throughout the whole country, but it was getting pretty cold here, so I didn't do too much. But Christmas Eve actually was sort of the main Christmas thing for us. We watched the Cowboys game. We watched Cowboys beat the shit out of the Eagles. That was a Christmas miracle for us. And yeah, so I opened some gifts and got some good stuff. I was pretty happy about it. So yeah, it was nice. How about you? What'd you get?
uh, let's see. Well, I didn't really get much. This shirt was about the gist of the best of my outcome for actual Christmas. So
Yeah, that's the Akira bike drawn there on the front.
yeah, so anyone who knows the Haynes manual for automotive, to make it simple, it's the Prima guide for cars.
Right.
So if you need to do some auto maintenance, yeah, you used to go ahead and before looking it up all on the internet, you'd get this giant phone book of a thing, and yeah, that's how you'd fix your car if you wanted to try to do it yourself. Uh, yeah, I'm not really sure what website she got it from, but it was yeah, my wife has good taste when it comes to things like that, and she knows I'm nerdy like that. So I'm like, cool. I didn't know I wanted it, but I do now. So
That's cool.
uh, yeah, kids had a good time, and we had the in-laws came in from out of town, so we got to spend some time with them. Thank you for your gift as well, and also thank you for the card.
No, you're
Your card
welcome.
came
Yeah.
the Wednesday after, but we still got it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mailed them, I guess, too late because I thought I mailed them in plenty of time, like 2 or 3 days, but because of Christmas, I guess the mail was just super slow. So it is what it
yeah,
is, but I'm glad you got it.
it was funny because I got two from your same postal stamp or I'm like, wait a minute, this one I knew it was you. And I'm like, who's this other one? But it was literally the same corner, like post office approved, and I'm not gonna dox you, so don't worry. But
Okay.
yeah, I was just
Thank
like,
you.
I'm like, wait, who do we know? And then it turns out it's like a cousin-in-law or something like that. I'm like, that's weird. We don't talk to them, but they were nice enough to give us a card, and apparently they live within your zip code vicinity. So
Wow, weird.
yeah,
That
yeah,
is
for sure. I
weird.
didn't know that until I just got this card. I'm like, oh, I didn't know they had our address, but apparently they do. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So I guess it gives us another reason to come down and visit you one of these days, and then we can visit. Make it a family thing as well, and be like, yeah, making the rounds.
Make it a family
So
affair. That'd be cool.
uh, all right, yeah. So I'm glad Christmas went well for you, and the impossible pivot. Okay, so now this is episode 34 of Another Dead Pixel. Nick, what do you got for news?
Not a lot. Not a lot. We're coming down to the wire here at the end of the year, and not a whole lot going on, but there is some stuff. Um, Probably the biggest thing, which is a little bit of an extension of a news thing that happened, I think back in November. I don't remember if we covered it, but I do kind of remember seeing it. Sonic co-creator Yuji Naka has been indicted on insider trading. Back in November, he was arrested on similar charges, but that was about Dragon Quest. This one dang it, I have the news story. This one was about um, he was buying stock in aiming, spelled AIMING, um, just before it was publicly confirmed that it was developing the mobile title Dragon Quest tag. So this is an extension of that. Well, he's been like arrested again or something, and it doesn't look great. Uh he is being accused of doing this insider trading. And if you don't know very much about the Japanese justice system, I think they have like a 99 or 98% conviction rate, which should make you angry to hear that, because that's not possible. Um, but anyway, so he is probably going to go to prison for this, whether he did it or not, or at least he'll be punished some way, fined or something, whether he did it or not. But it does kind of look sort of bad. But anyway, just Sonic co-creator got my attention, so I thought I'd bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Japan is you're guilty until proven innocent. And actually, in the most recent game franchise, the Judgment series,
Oh yeah.
you know, yeah, I think it was Judgment Eyes in the Japanese title.
Judge Eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's they end up having that's a big premise of it is he's a defense attorney, gets a dude off of a crime for I think it was murder or assault or something
It
like
was
that, and
murder. Yeah.
then he ends up murdering like someone else, and so it's a big deal, and that kind of is the start of the game. So no real spoilers. But
Yeah.
yeah, that, and also if anyone's ever played the Ace Attorney series games, they make, even though it's a caricature of a legal system, but they also make reference to like the high conviction rate in that as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty scary. So just know that, if you ever go to Japan, don't get arrested because you'll probably get convicted. But yeah, so that's kind of interesting. I'd like to keep track of it and see what actually happens to him, and what kind of punishment gets passed down, or if he gets off. Next thing is another kind of a small story. Capcom shuts down two fan made remakes of Resident Evil games during development. So I saw this story and I thought it was interesting, but then when I looked at kind of who was making it, I wasn't inspired by the YouTube channel of the person that was making this. Didn't really seem very professional and didn't have anything about the actual games. But I I don't know. I guess I liked that Capcom was paying attention to these guys, probably uh, trying to get some kind of notoriety or whatever, talking about their development of these games, and Capcom going ahead and saying, hey, you can't do that. Like, we're going to come after you if you do that. So let's save you some time and some money and just go ahead and tell you that we know what you're doing and stop. And I like that more than like the Nintendo way of like letting it go all the way and become like this really big thing and then like chopping it off at the ankles. Um, at least we don't have to, like, I mean, maybe these guys would have made something great and we'd have been like, oh dang, like Resident Evil, this is like a really cool like remake. But we're getting like denied having it because the big corporation is smashing the little guy. At least we don't have to go through that. We can just be like, well, it never was, and so we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, well, they've had a history of shutting down fan-made games. They did similar to Resident Evil 4,
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure they did the same to like 2 as well. But they've, in this case, I believe it was Resident Evil, the base game, and it was Code Veronica
that's right.
that were the fan-made targeting. So Code Veronica is kind of the black sheep of the Resident Evil family. A lot of people don't really know it exists, or like since it's not a numbered series, kind of like the Survivor, Resident Evil Survivor series, which Code Veronica was technically Survivor 2 in the arcade in Japan.
Well,
Uh,
it's a bit of a dark horse candidate because I've heard many people say that yes, there's parts of it that are like the back part of it is like bad, but the front part they say is like really really good. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of give that context.
yeah, and then of course, remaking the original. I mean, the original feels like it wasn't, it was just done not that long ago. But honestly, it's all kind of being cobbled from the original like GameCube remake, and so everything's just kind of reiterating on those. So you could do a new, refreshing twist off the original. Um,
Well, if they were going to keep doing these, I imagine that they would stop with 4 like they're going to put out, and they would probably neglect doing a 5 or 6 for a while because those are getting to be pretty recent, and they would instead go to something like going back to remake the remake of RE1, and then yeah, like Code Veronica is like a close miss for a lot of people. And so there's a lot of promise there. So that one they might also go, hey, this is kind of a fan, like a cult fan favorite. We can actually go through, remake this, make it better, and make money off of it. So it doesn't definitively mean that they're going to make these because they're shutting down these fan made games, but it's definitely a clue in that direction that they might have plans to go ahead and redo that. And so they don't want anybody
yeah.
messing with
Well,
their money.
they also have to protect themselves no matter what through precedence, because
That's true.
if they don't stop this, then what they're therefore they can't stop. It'll be harder to stop anything else.
Yeah.
Honestly, they should be. I don't really think. I think I think they should remake 5 and 6, especially 6. 6 was such a sloppy game, in my opinion. Five is a stupid game, but it's a lot of fun. I've beaten that game more than any Resident Evil game, on, with just one particular. But that's because of those 2 players and a buddy of mine. We've played it multiple times on. I think we beat it on almost everything except for the PS4,
Oh yeah.
that it's been released on. Every time it comes out on a new system, new remake, like we'd always get it and play through it again.
Yeah.
It was good. It's a good background game while you catch up with friends. It's Chris at his finest of boulder punching, over the top mayhem, and then just 6 was just incomprehensible. Yeah, there's something wrong with that game, and there's that meaning there's nothing right with it. Uh, they could remake 0 again, because when
Yeah.
they
Zero's
kind of
popular. Yeah.
they did touch ups to 0. It's been a while now, but when they did that, everyone got upset because like it's the perfect game for 2 player, and they completely just left it a single player game. I'm like, but if you could make that game a 2 player game, that would be amazing. So there's a few things they can do to touch up those old games, and yeah, I do actually kind of curious if they do Code Veronica again. Uh, but yeah, I like
So
their remakes. I think that Capcom's been doing a lot of good things lately in the Resident Evil series, whether it be the single player stuff or the first person perspective or the remakes. I'm all fan of those, so
so,
it's good.
so these guys who were doing this fan development, they said a couple things. They said first of all, they said we weren't planning to make any money off of it. We were just going to give it away for free. And I was kind of like, well, that's what you're saying now. Okay. And secondly, they said, well, we're just going to take what we've done so far and we're going to make a game that alludes to, that's like a spiritual successor to those games. And I was just like, why didn't you guys just decide to do that in the first place? Like, just like if you're going to go through all this work and you're going to make a spiritual successor, like, why don't you just plan to make a little bit of money off of it instead of giving it away for free, which sounds highly dubious to me. But it was just like, okay, like whatever. I'm glad that they stopped you, but I I know people like to make games, and it's easier now to make games than ever before. But just do you have to make it with somebody else's property? Like,
No, all right. So never underestimate the fandom.
yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's the thing is, because the when it came to Resident Evil 4, the fans went to such extremes to find actual images of buildings and locations, the castle, and stuff like that, to get high-res textures so they can remake assets themselves for the modding community.
Yeah,
And also, it's free publicity. So hey, we're gonna make this thing, and there's gonna be a couple routes this can go. If they can us, well, now people know we exist, and now we have at least we're in the rumor mill. People can at least be, oh yeah, remember that thing back then? That's from
notoriety.
those guys.
Okay,
It could go well. They can finish their thing, and everyone will know who they are because they finished their project, or possibly maybe they'll get hired on by Capcom if they're gonna if they like what they see,
right.
because that's happened before with a lot of these fan
So
projects. We'll take one person, or if it's a single passion project like the Metroid or something like that, like, hey, we're gonna cancel. It was the Return of Samus, the remake, and then they took him and helped to bring him into the fold to make the actual game, if I remember correctly.
what you're saying is it's either a big win, it's a small chance, but it's a big win, or it's a small win by getting notoriety and free, marketing, newspaper articles written about you and stuff. And that's what's most likely to happen because you're probably not going to get, fully prosecuted and sent to jail or having to even pay a fine. They're just going to ask you to stop because it's the cheapest option for everybody. But you're at least getting some kind of word of mouth notoriety from it at the very least. So
Yeah,
okay, that makes
exactly.
sense.
And it might even work out connections with people who be like, yeah, we liked what you did, or hey, we're like-minded people.
Could
We were
you
doing something similar. You got caught. We obviously are going to stop because we're going to get caught. We're going to get canceled too. But let's collaborate on something. There's
collaborate
there's
and
there's
take
a
our
lot of
assets and make
potential
something?
benefits.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. I guess swinging for the fences is the way to do it. Last little story here. Not about video games per se, though it might affect games, video games. Still. So it's about Dungeons and Dragons. Um, so it's a little bit hard to understand, and I got to be honest, I didn't go through the article with a fine tooth comb, but essentially the Wizards of the Coast, who's owned by Hasbro, but Wizards of the Coast owns and makes materials, the official materials for Dungeons and Dragons. And they are saying that they are going to introduce some new copyright rules for the Dungeons and Dragons property. Um, the reasoning behind this is that like in the old days nobody really cared because it was like, hey, you make your own D&D stuff and you sell it a little bit and you make a couple bucks, it's fine. But that was when the D&D community was much smaller, much less mainstream, much more underground. And nowadays you have, because of YouTube and Twitch and stuff, you have professional voice actors and writers who are turning these home games into literally multi-million dollar enterprises using D&D. So Wizards of the Coast is like kind of pulling their hair out with trying to make this, sort of work. On Critical Role, they always have an ad, and I think that like I've been watching some Critical Role from season 1, and a couple times they mentioned Pathfinder, those guys like used to play like a lot of Pathfinder, and they're having trouble getting into the rules of D&D because they're different. So I thought it was interesting. I was kind of wondering if maybe they used to play Pathfinder and they switched over to D&D because it's more marketable or whatever. But anyway, so basically what people think is that as long as you're small time with these new copyright rules, whatever they end up actually being, as long as you're small time, uh, Wizards of the Coast is not going to bother you. But after the new rules come about, if you start up a podcast or a YouTube channel, or you make a bunch of like really cool materials for D&D and it gets super famous and you make a bunch of money, then they think that Wizards of the Coast is going to come knocking with their lawyers and saying, hey, we need you to go ahead and pay us a substantial amount of money because you got famous and rich off of our copyrighted material, or at least our copyrighted game, our rules or whatever. So that's what people are thinking might be the case, but for now, nobody really knows yet because it's not been officially concretely announced. But I thought it was interesting because that would be a pretty big shakeup, I think, in that world if depending on what comes to pass.
Yeah, well, when you mentioned Critical Role, I mean Matt Mercer is huge with D&D Beyond, and he's made whole new characters and books and things that have become official D&D character sheets and everything like that.
Yeah,
You can make their version of an expansion, or I'm drawing a blank at like the what you call like a scenario, or it's kind
campaign,
of like an enclosed like segment, and I completely forgot what the word is
like a
for it.
one shot.
Uh, yeah, it's kind of a one shot, but it's also like um, it's something it's something like a one shot mixed between or an expansion, but it's not quite an expansion. But yeah, you can make other materials for it, and I mean people like Matt Mercer has done just leaps and bounds and helps really extend the name of it. But then you got stuff like Pathfinder and a bunch of other games that just like we base our rule set off of the D20 system, and so it's just like it's very much the way those rules work. That's how our rules work now. Just take the rest of the characters and scenarios and roll with that. Like that's so Pathfinder was very I think it was 3.5 adjacent. So that's and it was a lot. They had some things streamlined. I know a lot of people play it. They really like it. It's I used to play D20 Modern, which was a it was a current settings, timeline game. So you had, but you had fantasy creatures. So is think something like Underworld, where the
Okay.
monsters are like just behind closed doors, or like Hellboy or something like that, where you go to a bar and then all of a sudden that's people are in disguise, but that's what they are. They're the monsters that you're hunting. You had just like pages and pages of firearms, like or modern weapons, and but it was all based off the D20 system. So I mean, I can see them changing copyright. So if I try to make my own, I would get in trouble, or I have to go through the right channels, and then they have to get their cut from my book being sold, or my
Yeah.
new game rules. So I can see that.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a weird thing. I don't know what's going to end up happening with it. Hopefully not too much because if they try to clamp down too much, then it might kind of ruin the basically the meteoric rise that D&D has had in the past 5 or so years. But then again, like a lot of people are locked into D&D now. Um, it is a really good system and there's a lot of material and it just works really well. And everything that comes out as far as like any kind of helper materials for that kind of game always at least works with D&D. It might also work with Pathfinder or whatever it usually does, but at the very least if those people want to make money, they make sure that it works with that 5e system. So anyway, interesting to see where that goes. But that is all that I've got for the newsy news. So yeah, throw it back to you.
All right. Well, now we'll get down to what we've been playing. Uh, all right. I think I'll go ahead and kick this one off. I went ahead and played Somerville.
Okay.
This is a game on uh, Game Pass, and it's I think it's like a $25-$30 game. It's I guess the quickest way to say it is it's a shorter game, and it kind of plays somewhat similar to a Inside or a Limbo. Um, it's very reminiscent of those. It's not the same team. It's very much a different group. I think maybe one person is slightly connected from Inside, but I mean, other than that, it's a very uh, it's just very similar atmosphere. It's a game that has zero like actual speaking, and it's all done by just what having your characters move around in the world. And essentially, I'm not going to talk about too much because it's a short game. You can do it all in like 4 hours.
Okay.
Um, so maybe five if you really take your time. So the simple premise is, uh, the Earth is under attack, and things go chaotic, and you get separated from your family, and so you're kind of um, trying to find your family while avoiding getting caught by like aliens, essentially, or whatever whomever these invaders are.
It does sound a lot
And
like Limbo and Inside.
yeah, so this one has little, has more of a three-dimensional map as far as you don't go just straight from left to right. You
Okay.
have more depth. So you can wander the yard a little bit, which is fine. But the problem with these games that I've always had with is they don't really give you the sense of speed that you need. So a lot of it's slow lumbering, and then like to go look around, and then there's like nothing there, and then you're going, okay, well now I'm gonna waste more time having to double back,
Mm,
and especially later on in the game. Like, I honestly think this game could be cut out in half if you had like the run button, and if you quit, making me do some monotonous things like walking slowly with a light,
mm.
and making my way through. I'm like, it's this not a scary moment. It's just me literally cutting a path, and it's just like, but I'm slowly cutting my path. I'm like, dude, there's no reason for me to slowly cut a path. Or
So,
walking in water. I don't need to walk in water. You can make me just go fast. Where's my fast button?
so there's a. I just so you talking about this makes me think of Jeff Bakalar, who was on Giant Bomb. Uh, he always used to ask, "How's the running around in that game?" And I always thought that was like a whatever question, just like a kind of a kickoff question, but it's actually pretty important. And what you're talking about exemplifies why, because a lot of games are like running around, and if you're not moving well, or if the movement is not inherently interesting or fun, or at least like getting you to the next thing very quickly, then that game can really come to a pretty bad experience pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say it has a very strong first hour of the game. Like the opening bits are really good. The music's, like pretty on point. It gives you a very strong vibe of what the game could be. By the end of it, I felt like it was very different from how I originally expected it. I thought there wasn't enough in-game storytelling to kind of explain what I wanted it to explain, because it left me confused. Like, how did you make this leaps of jumps, to get this to this point? Because there's like I feel like I was missing a chapter or something.
Mm,
Um, and then luckily the game doesn't have too many collectibles. It's pretty simple that way. They have chapter select, so it makes it quite a bit easier if you miss something. And it's one of those games that has multiple endings. Uh, how you get those multiple endings, like without looking it up, I have no idea, because essentially you're communicating with some people that you don't have any real form of communication. And at first, the ending I got, I just copied. Like, oh, you
oh,
can mimic them, kind of. So I'm like, oh, I mimicked them. It did a thing, and boom, I got it. And then I looked up. I'm like, there's all these other ways you can try to communicate. I'm like, there's no way that you get that pattern, um, to try to communicate in that sequence like naturally. Or at least I don't feel that it would be the case.
yeah.
So I got like there's like four or five different endings. Um, and luckily they restart you from pretty much the start of the last sequence so that you can just knock those out. and that was nice of them. So they didn't have to, pick one and then be done with it. You can actually just get those. Yeah, so I did everything I could in the game. I got the full achievement set, and I mean, it was entertaining. Like I said, I just felt that it was just dragged on a little too long. Mostly because by the time I was done with it, I'm like, yeah, okay, I know it. Just go. This isn't. I don't know. There's just the
Yeah.
first hour, maybe the first half was really good, like solid, and then the rest of it just kind of, for me personally, just did not keep the pace. So
Yeah, sounds like a good Game Pass game. Something that you really don't want to have to regret paying for. But
I feel that's the thing is I feel like the reason why a game like this is padded out to the length is to guarantee if you did play it to completion, you wouldn't be able to return it.
yeah, yeah, that is one thing that people were saying back whenever they did start that 2 hours for on Steam, that it would start to affect games that were good but were short. They'd just get padded out and basically kind of be ruined. But that's kind of a sad reality, unfortunately. Yeah, it sounds. I'm glad that you played it. I remember seeing something about this, but it didn't interest me enough to go and try to do it. So I'm glad that you saved me the trip. So thank you for that.
It was like I said, that the beginning bit was very entertaining. I had a feeling it gave me a vibe and a sense of like urgency and threat, and like, oh, like this is sounds seeming like it's going to be a really good game. Too bad it just didn't deliver with all that from the start. And it is what it is. But I would say it's an okay game. If you want to play it, play it. I'm not going to tell people not to. But at the same time, I can't really say go out of your way. But if you're on a kick, or like if you like games like Inside and Limbo, something where it's an interesting story being told without really being telling you too much, and if you like that kind of walking around type, then sure, this isn't that bad. Um, it's unfortunately it's just not that great. So yeah, that's what I played primarily. So go for it. What have you been up to, man?
So I dipped into a couple different games, and I some of them I'm not ready to talk about, so leave those for later. But one that I did play is Pentiment, also on Game Pass. Um, this game is by Obsidian. Came out not too long ago, back in October or November. I feel like maybe
Yeah.
it was even later.
I talked about it shortly after it first came out.
Okay. Have you had a chance to play it?
Yeah, we talked about it on the podcast.
I don't remember at all. Um,
I didn't get too terribly far into it, but and then when I had to restart it, I had to leave the computer, and when I came back to it, it put me back a little farther than I would like to have. So
uh,
due to the autosave, so I was like, "Yep," and I never quite got back into it again.
so
So
spoilers for the early part of this game, in case you don't want to hear this. But I'm just gonna ask you, Joe. So, did you get to the Abbey?
yeah,
Did you help the nun?
no, actually, the I got to just it was just about that point where I had to turn off it, and then it brought me back to the village short, like before you met
Oh wow.
the noble.
Oh wow. It should. Wow. It should have been. Oh, that's weird. Because mine was.
Because it moved, because I went multiple screens, you're talking to multiple different people, and I'm like, so it should have me, like, maybe at worst, maybe
Auto saved, yeah.
the section before, and it didn't. It had me jump like just after the village, the town square. It reloaded me to that, and I'm like,
I
no,
wonder.
I'm good.
I wonder.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I wonder if maybe you played it earlier than me, if it was an earlier build and it had some kind of glitch or something that they corrected for me later or something. But okay, anyway. So about
You
the
can go ahead and spoil it. It's fine. I don't care.
I didn't play much further than you did. It sounds like, but I did play through helping the nun, and by that point, after that, I kind of got to see a little bit of the power of this game. Um, this is a game that if you decide to play it, you should play it as it is, as a visual novel. You're reading a book here. It's it's given to you a little bit at a time, and there's plenty of like interaction, so it's like a good one of those. But it is a visual novel. Also, it is about Europe, in the Middle Ages. It's a lot about European art, European history, European law and business and stuff like that in the Middle Ages. Um,
There's a huge glossary for all that stuff.
there's a lot, and some of the things that they are constantly asking you questions and having you give slightly different answers. And most of the time, those answers probably don't mean anything, but pretty often uh, they will tell you after you give an answer, this will be remembered, or this is like affecting your thing. And sometimes they will show you a list of answers, and the way they have it, displayed to you, shows you, hey, this is important. Like sometimes it's just like this word or whatever. But then sometimes it's like a bigger screen. It's taking most of the screen, and it's got a symbol next to it. Each answer has a different symbol next to it, and they explain what this means. And it's like, okay, this is a bigger deal than the other stuff. But there's like a lot of the NPCs are kind of doing their own thing, and they're pretty well written. Even the few ones that I've seen, everybody definitely feels like their own person, and not like one writer putting the same person just with different names and different clothes on. They do feel different. The game feels really, really smart. It does feel really smart. I would like to play more of it. I don't know how much I'll actually play, because it's not a video game. It's you have to be in the mood to read a book or play this kind of game. Um, and it is interesting in its own right, but if you're not a person who is naturally interested in European history, it is going to be very hard for you to get through, because um, it's a lot of that. I do want to ask you, what role did you pick? I picked um, artist, or I think I guess you're already an artist, but I picked a religious a guy who went to like seminary school and college. I can't hear you. I think I may have lost you.
So I think my guy
There
traveled
you go.
Europe or something like that. Like I had him travel Italy, so he was able to connect with the noble that way because
Yeah,
of my studies in art. I had a bit of some sort of bit of religious studies in the background. So this game, if you get anxiety about about multiple choices and not knowing which one is the right choice to pick,
oh man.
this is not the game for you. Because they keep, especially early on, they give you a lot of you start filling out your backstory and what your specialties are. Like I chose that I was scholared, so I went to school to a certain extent, or like what I studied was like, I want to say I chose some sort of speech and religion were the two
That's
things I
exactly what
studied.
I did. I did speech. I did theology, and I did the orator.
Um,
That's funny.
and so it was, like you can see how they're stacking these blocks and what they're trying to build upon, because you're gonna based on how your character can be built, you can kind of see like the gears turning and be like, okay, well, when chaos ensues, because there's going to have to be things that them go nuts. You're going to have to be equipped with certain, these are going to be your weapons, as they were. Like, well, you're going to have to be, if you can speak to the masses, or if you're a good public speaker, then that might help out. But also the other things you can pick are like, well, I can focus my studies or something on specific art or specific religion, the history of the law or something like that as well. So there's a lot of things you can pinpoint. So uh yeah, being able to talk your way out of something might be good, but also knowing what the hell you're talking about. And then as you're making these conversations later, they will show you like, oh, because you've studied in this, you have a special dialogue prompt that you can now
Yeah,
choose,
that's cool.
that wouldn't have been there had you not chosen that. So, yeah, it's neat. It's very much an Obsidian thing to do. I just like I said, it was because it pushed me back so far, and then I literally had just chosen like a half dozen choices,
Yeah,
and
and
I'm
yeah, when
like,
you're
I'm
walking.
gonna, yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, when you're walking with the noble, they are firing a lot at you, with choices and stuff. So having to redo all that probably wouldn't take that long, but it's still just an irritating thing to have to
Well,
do.
it's one of those things that I try to play something where with a game like this, I I I don't I'm bad at trying to make these decisions, right?
Yeah,
And there's a certain part of my brain where like I have to min max this, and but I try not to spoil it for myself, so I'm not going to look it up. Um, so I try to commit to what I do. But then if I'm given a second choice to it, I might especially since I played a little bit beyond and there was a couple of those questions, I'm like, maybe I'll second guess myself. And I'm like, I just don't want to go through the headache again.
yeah,
So I was just, because the first Mass Effect, I've played that one so many times, but I also save scum so much just to see what the other outcomes were at that given moment.
yeah,
What happens if I talk smack to this reporter? Oh, I punched her. That was awesome. Okay, now what happens if I, you know, stuff like that? It's just, I mean, that person did deserve it, but what happens if I do the most, polite routes and or what? Whereas I'd go through and reload just that scene, and then I'd do that with a bunch of other scenes, and I'm like, that was when I had more free time. I don't have that kind of time anymore.
yeah.
And and that's another thing. Resetting my time, making me lose. I'm like, I can't trust that game anymore because what happens if happens again? I'm like, I'm not just gonna. I should just spend my time with something else. So
No, like
yeah,
there's a time in the Abbey where I kept checking to see if it had saved. So I get autosave features, but there needs to always be. How do I say this?
a hard save.
There's probably a reason why a game might not allow a hard save, but I've never seen a good reason why there should not be a hard save. Even if it's over the same one or whatever, maybe it's because they don't want you to get stuck, soft locked somewhere. But I just,
So the best route for a game like this is to hard save, but then make sure it's at the prior checkpoint. And that's the compromise you make because you don't want to save yourself right before a major decision and then just
get
reload that
screwed
same
into it.
decision again and again.
Yeah.
Because that is a bad case of save scumming. But at least if you can guarantee a hard save from the moment because you think that these auto saves should be done every time there's a screen transition. Um, and like I said, I had gone through at least four of them, I think, five maybe
Yeah.
by the
Yours was
time,
totally a
you
glitch. It
know,
had to be.
and so I'm like, yeah, I should be good. At the very least, I should be at the start of my walk with the noble. But I mean, I think I just transitioned into a new room, spoke to the nun. I'm like, all right, well, I got to step away, and so I should be good to go. And I'm like, he fired me so far back, which really wasn't so far back. But once again, at the time when I first started and did all the reading, that was like it was like 15 minutes or something like that. Maybe 10. But I'm like, I can just smash through it and answer what I did. About it just killed my interest and I killed my trust on that. So
Did
yeah,
you
that's
play this game on your phone? I can't remember.
no, this one I'm pretty sure I just played this one's just straight on the computer.
See, like,
Um,
go ahead.
no, yeah, it was shortly after it first came out. I just touched base with it, and yeah, it was like I said, it looked neat. You can see where it's going, but and if you put in the time, it probably pays out pretty well. I just unfortunately am not putting in the time anymore in this.
See, like this game, looking at it and playing it, makes me feel like I should get the Game Pass Ultimate so that I can play it on my phone because it feels like, I mean, it's very slow paced. You're doing a lot of reading and you're only clicking on things. So playing it on my phone or playing it on like an iPad or something like that seems like the ideal place to play, like in bed or in a on a bus or something that's jostling around where you don't have that much, coordination as easy. I think that'd be cool. Um, but I don't know. Maybe it would be too small or something to click those tiny prompts. But I don't know. Seemed like an idea to
Yeah,
me.
I think tablet would work better than a phone just because because if you're looking at the glossary, when it starts trying to remind you of, hey, this is a piece of art they're talking about, or this is a law that was going on, or hey, this is the person, and then like you're looking up like what's my relation to them, or their relationship to the town is this, and there was a lot to read through. So
Well,
uh
I mean, as much as there is to read through, I really have to applaud the game for allowing you to have it explain as much as you need to, as much as you need explained to you, and not really more. Like they'll explain what they know they have to about the story, but a lot of the stuff about like every once in a while, like you were saying, there'll be a proper noun or a word like a scriptorium or something, which is scriptorium is where they would copy the books and stuff like that. Well, that word will be underlined in red, and if you've never looked it up before, so you can click on that word and it'll take you to a definition, which is very well stylized, and looks cool. And then whenever you come back out of that, now that word is still underlined, but instead of a straight red line, it's a dotted line showing, hey, you've looked this up before. Um, so it's cool because it doesn't force you to do that, but if you need it, it's there for you. And I just really appreciated that.
Yeah, they do make it accessible for everyone, in that regards of like what, your wealth of knowledge or lack thereof. And that, yeah, it was neat. Just, once again, you have to be able to commit yourself to reading, this visual novel essentially.
Yeah, you better be ready to read. Yeah. So anyway, it's a cool game. Probably won't. It's a cool game, I say. I do find myself wanting to play it more, but there's some other stuff that I would really rather get my hands on. So I might do that instead, and maybe come back to this. But
It's a
who
fun. I
knows?
think it might be a fun game if you go into it specifically trying to cause mayhem, instead of trying to play it right. I think it's more.
Mm.
It's one of those games with a buddy or some with a friend, or showing them this and just specifically seeing what kind of chaos you can do. I think that might be good, and that I might go into it with that kind of attitude. But yeah, all right. Well, that's cool. I'm glad you actually touch base with that one. Uh, and yeah, let me know if you go ahead and actually play any more of that, because I said where we left off. I think we're just on the cusp of things starting to kick off. And if you just give it another, 15, 30 minutes or something like that, I'm betting you can start seeing that, like, that snowball kind of roll downhill and gaining momentum.
Well, the helping the nun, a lot of things started to come together with the answers that I'd given, and I had a chance to pass or fail, and because of this and that, I was able to pass, and so I was like, okay, so there are some stakes here, and I'm sure I'm going to run into stuff where I won't be able to pass, so that'll force me into a different thing. So it does have promise for that. So I don't know. Maybe it'll be cool.
Hey guys, just quickly cutting in. I mentioned at the top of the episode that we were going to talk about anime and how things are going to change. So because it's such a big part of our lives, we decided to go ahead and spin this off into a new podcast. To tell us more about that, Nick is here. So go ahead, Nick, take it away.
All right, guys. Yeah. So like Joe said, we are going to be starting a new podcast. We're going to be calling it Another Damn Anime Podcast. It's going to be a lot like this show, though it will be a little bit shorter, and we'll be playing some games and talking about special topics. It's going to go up at the same time as Another Dead Pixel, but it will be on a separate channel, both on YouTube and on podcast services. So be sure to look for it at Another Damn Anime Podcast. Yeah, so that's all I've got. Joe, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Nick. And yeah, this is going to be a fun adventure for all of us. So hope you guys stick with us.
Thanks.
Okay. All right then. Moving on to what we've been watching. All right, I'll go ahead and kick this off then, because I started with some old ones. Do the holiday season, you watch your usual, people have their go-to movies. Mine's always, of course, the Die Hard and the Gremlins. Those two are just a Christmas movie as anything else.
Okay, I
Uh,
couldn't remember if you were on the Die Hard as a Christmas movie side of the argument
uh,
or not.
it's just as much a Christmas movie as It's a Wonderful Life. And I proved me wrong. Seriously. That like the fact that It's a Wonderful Life is a Christmas movie just makes me nauseous. Uh so if you can't if like yeah, it's honestly just as much of it takes place in it and that's all. There is no other thing. Most of that movie is done throughout time, a bunch of time spans, and it's not just Christmas. Um Now, of course, you got the many versions of Christmas Carol. My favorite is still Scrooge.
Oh yeah, that's
That's
pretty good.
Bill Murray's. Way more adult than you remembered if you only last saw it as a kid.
Yeah.
Um, it's pretty fun that way. But yeah, I actually watched two of them that I hadn't seen in a very very long time. One was the original Home Alone. It's I hadn't seen that in forever. And then another one was While You Were Sleeping. So my wife is a fan of that one, and it's actually not a bad movie. But both happen to take place in my neck of the woods around the Chicago area. So that was kind of just a fun coincidence, and we got yeah, Home Alone. I remember it being really funny, but like watching, I'm like, man, this kid's a psychopath,
Yeah.
just straight up like, seeking help.
I mean, Home Alone really does hold up. It's the practical effects and it's pretty silly, but it takes a while for the parts that you remember to actually come. I mean, they're like at the end of the freaking movie. All the parts that you remember with all the crazy hijinks, everything else is kind of just set up. But yeah, man, Home Alone it's a great movie to watch because of like now because of I don't know, it's such a 90s. It is such a 90s ass movie. Everything about that is just such a so middle class America in the 90s and it's great for all that. I love it.
Yeah, it was it like I said, yeah, it does still hold up, and it's uh it like I said, I hadn't seen it since I feel like since the mid '90s, honestly.
Yeah,
Um
it is good.
it came out like 91 or something like that, I think. But yeah, so it was entertaining enough. And then While You're Sleeping is an old Julia Roberts one, where she's just a ticket.
It's not
I actually don't like Julia Roberts, and I don't like Sandra Bullock. I don't like them
well,
both.
it's Sandra Bullock who's in that one.
Um yeah, okay.
And
Then yeah, I get them wrong
and
too, so I don't
I
care.
think Bill Pullman is the main guy, the brother, that of the guy who's in a coma.
Yeah, so the guy in coma was Peter Gallagher.
Peter Gallagher, yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
so so I mean,
that poor guy. Gosh, they just they
so
fucking
the premise of the movie,
gaslight that
real
guy
quick,
so bad.
is Sandra Bullock is in. She works at a ticket booth. She's in love with Peter Gallagher, but she just all she does is take his subway tokens as he gets on, and she's like, one day I'll work up the courage to to ask him out or confess to him, and he's like a successful business guy who takes the subway, um, and but yeah, he's dressed nicely in suits and stuff, and what he gets hassled and he falls onto the tracks, and so she saves his life from getting hit by a train, and he's unconscious. So since she's there at the time of the accident, she goes with him to the hospital, and she says to herself out loud, like, "I'm gonna marry him." And a nurse overhears that. So when the family shows up, they're like, "Who are you?" And then the nurse goes, "Oh, she's the fiance." And the family then proceeds to adopt her. And she has no family of her own, so she just
Conveniently, yeah.
yeah, and it's hilarious because like half that movie, well, most of the movie, Peter Gallagher is just the coma guy,
Yeah.
and then
Gosh,
yeah, so it's a good movie. It has a lot of uh, yeah, it was a Bill Pullman. He's the president from Independence Day.
yeah.
Uh,
I'm pretty sure I have
So
that right.
I just remember him being the president of Independence Day.
Yeah,
So if
yeah.
that's the same, yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
his name though. But yeah, yeah, he was also in Malice. He's been in a bunch of stuff. But President from Independence Day is probably his seminal role. Yeah, that movie's pretty good. It's quaint. It's if they knew how much of a Christmas movie that probably was going to end up being, they probably would have leaned into it a little bit harder, because it does feel like a Christmas movie. It's a rom com, but there's enough like winter and Chicago kind of mixed
It
in.
literally takes place within the spans of like Christmas to New Year. It's like right
Oh,
before Christmas, and that's I think that's when it happens is because she's like working that day because her boss wants her to work Thanksgiving and now Christmas, and
yeah,
since she has no family, she can work the booth.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and then it's within like the family's like invites her to Christmas dinner and like yeah you saved his life and your fiance you should come over to dinner and
Yeah,
so it's
it's one
like
of those things where it's like she sort of steps in it and then she gets in deep and she just can't back out. Oh man, it's a pretty
yeah,
good
it's
one.
it's good. They have a family friend who's like who knows the truth, and he's like, "Don't worry, I'll handle this," and he doesn't handle it. Um, you know,
Yeah.
it's good stuff. It's honestly, like I said, I'm not a fan of her movies, outside of like Speed. Like that was,
Oh, I'm trying to
um,
think. There was something whenever you said that the first time that I was like, oh no, I like. I mean, I
Miss
don't.
Congeniality gets a lot of love. I don't care for it.
It's good.
Um,
It's good. There's aspects of it that really hold up.
The
Um,
Net, that
the
wasn't
net
good.
is not great. I just watched part of that recently. Man, that does not. That people did not understand what the internet was in like 1995 or whenever the movie came out. They kind of did, but it was like it's just it's weird. That movie's weird. I feel like there's something else though that she did that I really like, but I just
Knowing you, it would be any of the Ocean's movies.
was she in the
She was in
Ocean's?
one of them.
She was in
She was at
Ocean's
least
8. She was Ocean. She was his sister. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Um,
you would know that. Yeah.
I remember seeing that movie in the theater. Dadgummit. Yeah. So, uh, there's I don't dislike her, but I can't really think of anything that I specifically really liked that she's been in, especially not recently. Most of the stuff she's been in recently, I'm like whatever. But anyway, that's cool. That's a good old movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's just I hadn't seen those in many many years, and so that was kind of what I ended up watching was those kind of movies, and we just did a torrent of like old Christmas movies. One I wanted to see is that sequel to A Christmas Story, because I'm very curious. I know no news about the reviews. I just know they made the sequel, and Ralphie's now an adult, and I'm like. I'm really just curious how that one played out because yeah, that I love the original. So
Yeah, that one's Christmas Story is what they play on TBS every year for 24 hours, right? They
probably
still
I
do
don't know. I
that?
haven't had TBS since high school, so
I know I haven't either. I just wonder if they still freaking do that because, man, and that was one of those things where I was like, all right, I'm gonna watch this all the way through one time this year for the first time ever, and I never did. I never watched that movie in its entirety. I think I've seen all of it, literally 30 seconds at a time. But whatever. Okay, so
what have you been watching, man?
I went and saw Avatar 2 or Avatar The Way of Water. Uh, so you've told me, I can't remember how much you or how you actually really feel about the first Avatar. So could you remind me briefly what you think of the first Avatar?
I think it's garbage. I think it's hot trash because I did not see it in theater. So I meant when Avatar first came out, the way to have seen it was in the IMAX with the 3D glasses and for all the spectacle because it's one of those movies that you get way more out of it. Just like any of the later bad Jurassic Park movies, it's more enjoyable when you're seeing it on a big screen. Um, so Avatar, like I saw it at home and I'm like, this is just a bad version of Dances with Wolves or like The Last Samurai, but like just
It's
really bad. The
Pocahontas.
concept is, person implanted in alien or in this time literally alien, but a foreign environment, and they just adapt and become one of them. And there was nothing good about that movie. Like I just the military guy turned out to be a bad guy. Who would have thought? And it was nothing was convincing in that movie. It was just the CG was amazing, and it's if other than the visuals, the actual plot line was just not good.
Yeah, people didn't like the story because I mean, like it's literally Pocahontas with some of the proper nouns changed. That's pretty much it. But Avatar 2, I think that if you saw Avatar 2, I don't know if you would actually like it, but I am 99% sure that you would say that it is better than the first one. Um, Avatar 2 is a simple story again, but it's a different type, and there's a lot more moving pieces. Well, there's probably like I would say there's like probably like if the first movie is kind of about one thing, really, then this movie is like about two or three things depending on how you look at it. Um, this movie is I don't know. I liked the first Avatar. I do see everyone's point about it being, overly simple and like not a whole lot going on. But I thought that the characters were well acted by the people that acted them. I know that they did a lot with a little bit. And yeah, the tech. I mean, the tech for it is really good. I mean, that first movie still holds up as far as like how it looked, even compared to other movies of the time, because of the way that they filmed it. They filmed more for the long term aesthetics rather than whatever was the hot tech of the week whenever they were filming. So this movie, this Avatar 2, similar in the ways of tech, advancements for sure, but it really, James Cameron really puts you in it. This movie, like a lot of James Cameron movies, is three movies in one, and if you see it, you'll know what I mean. Like the beginning and the middle of it and the end are all kind of their own movie by themselves in their own way. I don't know. I liked this movie a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. I actually went and saw it twice. I went and saw it first by myself, and then my parents wanted to go see it, and I was like, I'll go see it again with you. And I actually had a much better experience that time because I picked a better theater to go see it at. Yeah, it's good. I thought it was good. I think that if you hated the first one, you're not gonna love this one. You might be okay with it, but it's, I don't know. I think that it's, I don't know. There's something sort of intangible about it that I like. And I think James Cameron is a pretty good filmmaker. It's just too bad he's a bit of a dick.
The
But
dude has gone insane because of this series. Instead of making other wonderful movies, he should have focused on. He just parked his cart behind this one, and he gave up things like Battle Athena, and he's just he could have been making at least anything else, but he's like, no, I'm in it for the Avatar series for like 1 through 5, and he just kind of lost his mind. It's kind of weird
I
how
think
dedicated he is to this. Which I mean, it's good for you. You're passionate about something, but
there's
like it took forever.
some stories about James Cameron. He's pretty well known as being a dick in Hollywood, and there's a lot of jerks, there's a lot of dicks in Hollywood, and he's like stands like among them. I don't know, maybe he's changed his ways a bit more, but there's some stories about what he did on Abyss to Ed Harris that caused Ed Harris to punch him. And just generally people just don't like him or didn't like him in Hollywood. I think that's kind of changed. I think that's probably why he went away for so long and just made documentaries and stuff. Yeah, this movie, that's one of the things that I can say about it that, like, I guess if you hated the first one, then it doesn't really help the argument, but you can go from watching Avatar 1 to Avatar 2, and even though they are 13 years apart, it feels like you're stepping back into the same movie. So, for better or worse, that's really hard to do, no matter, how good or bad the movie is, to come right back to where you left off. And I think it does that pretty well, but it does advance some things and make a more interesting story, I think. But anyway, I'd like you to see it if you ever get a chance. At least start to watch it or watch part of it, because I would just want to know if he did make it any better in Joe's opinion, and that's really all that I would want to know.
Well, because is Sam Worthington still the main lead?
So I don't want to spoil it too much, but Sam Worthington playing Jake Sully and Zoe Saldana playing Neytiri, they take a significant step back in the movie. They are still technically the leads, but by like a very slim margin. Their kids and some other characters take big steps forward, which is kind of what I think makes the movie better than the first one. Is you are paying attention to a lot more storylines than just like, oh, the heroes. There's they do a lot more with the bad guy. They change stuff up a lot. I really don't think that you're gonna love it, but I would say that I just want to know your opinion on it. I just want to know how much the changes in it would affect what you think, just so I can get a better idea of like how Joe's mind works.
Yeah, because it was one of those things that like everyone at the time when the first Avatar came out, Hollywood was pushing Sam Worthington to be this new hotness. He
Yeah.
was literally like he was in everything. I mean, and unfortunately, none of the things he was in really, for me personally, like panned out to be anything really great. Um, I mean, I actually didn't mind the Terminator movie he was in, Salvation. That was the Christian Bale one that everyone that
Yeah,
turned out to hate Christian Bale for.
I remember. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just like I mean, he was in Clash of the Titans. He was in
Gosh, he was in
yeah,
everything from like
yeah. It's like they really pushed
2007,
him, and none of it
2011.
actually panned out though.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought he was fine. He's a fine actor. But you're right. Like he's not really. Um, I think the thing is that he was in so much, and then he, either by his own choice or by force of the market, he just kind of quit acting. He just like went away. Because I haven't seen him in hardly anything in the past 7 years, 7 years. Um, and then he like came back for this, and I was like, that was kind of one of the reasons why I thought that Avatar 2 and 3 and 4 and however many they're going to make, I thought they were dead, because I was like, well, you kind of have to have Sam Worthington in it at least a little bit, and he's like gone. So I figured that the series was just going to be dead. It's really amazing that it's got made. I can't. If you'd asked me 3 years ago, is this movie going to happen? I'd say, hell no, it's never going to happen. But here it is.
Yeah,
Rumors.
see, I felt it missed its boat. As far as peak goes, because it should have been done. For like honestly, at most 5 years after the first.
I know.
I mean,
Yeah.
there were people who decided to learn the language, because that was available to the public, and I'm like,
Uh,
that's like a Lord of the Rings meets Star Trek level of commitment, man. For a single movie to go ahead and to learn a whole new language.
well, I mean, like
Um,
like Avatar is, it's a weird thing because there were literal news articles about people, being obsessed with that world and going to see the movie a bunch of times because they didn't want to like leave that world. And I will say that as far as like a realized world, it's pretty high up there. Like that place feels pretty dang real to me. But there's a lot of people who just like loved it for those aspects. And 2 years later, nobody, even a year later, nobody was talking about it. No one was like looking for more or like saying, "Hey, give us more," um, which is kind of weird. Like I saw many articles in recent years saying like it was like the biggest like flash in the pan movie like ever, just huge, makes tons of money, everybody loves it, or at least goes to see it, and it has a good critical reviews and all that stuff, and then nothing. It's just
yeah, well,
weird.
I can be honest with it. I am not gonna go and pay to see this movie.
I don't want you to pay to see
Though
it. I don't want you
though
to
it
pay to
is
see it.
no, it is the best a movie like this, the best way to see it. It would be that way. Just like if you go see something like a Godzilla movie, it's because you want that, experience.
I, I,
Um,
I'll agree with you on Godzilla, but honestly, I mean, maybe IMAX is like a better, brighter screen or whatever. So, whatever. I didn't see it at IMAX, but sitting in the theater, with a big screen and a good seat and stuff, and watching this movie, I I kind of thought I would probably enjoy this more sitting at home in front of my OLED screen, because it would be brighter. It would, and I don't know. I know it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but like I think that if you have an OLED screen and it's a good size and you can sit in front of it at a good distance, then I think you're probably going to enjoy it more at home, especially if you have a decent sound system, and I think you do. Like I know I do. So I think that's probably the ticket. So
well,
anyway,
when it comes to, the OLED, the big thing is the HDR on it. But yeah, it's as far as this goes, yeah, eventually maybe when it makes its way to, who actually, what studio is running this one?
I think it's
Um,
Fox, or I know they're owned by Disney now, but I think it's Fox. I don't know.
okay, so so there's a chance that it might end up making its way to Disney.
Well, Disney already
um,
has the first Avatar playing right now, so I imagine it would.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I didn't even realize they had that.
I
I do a
saw it
lot
up
of
here.
Disney for the kids, but I didn't even notice that they. That's actually how I saw Home Alone is off of Disney.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
yeah. I saw that on there too.
and
Yeah.
it's because I'm like, I haven't seen Home Alone since I was a kid, you know. So that's exactly how that rolled out. Um, and actually, that's how While You're Sleeping. I'm pretty sure that's a Disney one too. Now that I think about it,
I bet it
I don't
is.
know. My
Yeah.
wife pulled that one up, and so I was like, okay. So,
Okay.
yes. Anyways, yeah, that's it for the show, man. It's
All right.
love it, hate it,
Just pull the
maybe
rug
watch
right out from under.
Avatar. Um, yeah, I just say let it go, and if it's meant to be, it'll come back again. Uh,
That's the way
maybe if
I was.
Avatar 3 ever gets pumped out.
Whenever I heard about them talking about like 5 and 6 avatars, I was like, that's bullshit. Shut the fuck up. That's never going to happen. But now it seems like it's going to be like one every 2 years. At least they filmed 2 and 3 at the same time, and they're going to try to film the other ones simultaneously. But I think 3 will come out, but I'm still dubious about any more because that just seems like a lot. But
I
whatever.
don't know. Just it seems like he's just going for the Peter Jackson approach. Just make it long enough for everyone to stop caring about it. So, all right.
Yeah.
Speaking about not caring about it, I'm amazed if you made it to the end. So,
Yeah. So am I. So am I.
yeah. Well, it's been another year here with another Dead Pixel, and we appreciate it. yeah, so I hope you all have had a good holiday season so far, and hope you guys have a wonderful New Year, and we'll see you on the other side.
All right. See ya.
Take it easy, guys.
Bye.